Hey everybody, welcome back to Cascadia Dispatch, Prepping for Non-Preppers. I'm Casey, and on today's video, we are going to talk about the silver lining for 2020 that took me literally weeks to try to figure out, because I think we all recognize that 2020 was a dumpster fire. So I think for most of us, 2020 was an awful year. There may have been some exciting things, but I think in general, everyone's talking about how 2020 was a horrible, horrible year. Economically, just in general, society, there was just a lot happening. The illness was a big thing. Like, there's just a lot. And everywhere you looked, something else bad seemed to happen. It wasn't like we could just have one awful thing. We had to have multiple awful things happening at the same time. And yes, every time I say 2020, I also hear Barbara Walters saying it from the show 2020. So if you are hearing that, it's not just you. So because there's so many videos online and have been online for a while about just how awful, just what a horror show 2020 was, I want to try to come up with some positives. And I wanted to come out with some big positives, some overarching positives that we could talk about and look back on 2020 and say that was a positive thing. That was a good thing that happened in 2020, aside from regaling ourselves with the stories of all of the awfulness. Before I go into what I think the big silver lining of 2020 is, what was the positive thing that happened for you? Or the worst thing that happened? Actually, if both. What was the worst thing and the best thing that happened to you in 2020? Leave that in the comments below. We'll all kind of commiserate on the bad things and celebrate the good. And I think if everybody sees that there were actually some good things that happened, that's always a positive. That's always uplifting to the community. So before I tell you mine, you go ahead, leave it in the bottom in the comments down below. So it took several weeks to try to think about what this kind of big overarching positive was. And there have been little positives, like we all learned how to make bread, and we all learned in a lot of ways how to cut hair, and we all learned how to solve these wonderful 3D puzzles that are called Legos. We all, I think, or at least most of us, learned the entertaining value of TikTok. I know some people don't like TikTok, and I know some people do. I find it to be very entertaining. And, I have a phone, so I'm not super worried about all the privacy and data and everything else. I like to watch the videos. I think some of us learned that as a 40-year-old dad, you could come back to online gaming and play Fortnite with your friends because that was super fun. And I had not planned on doing that. And that, I think, was one of the things that, in a lot of ways, as someone who likes to spend time with people, helped kind of get through the isolation and quarantine and all of that. So there were definitely some positive things. I enjoyed seeing my kids every day as they were at school and running in and out of my office during the day. So there were some little positives. There were some wins and some of those sorts of things. I think the big overarching positive that I saw out of 2020 was 2020 was the year of the non-prepper. I think a lot of people in the preparedness community think of preparedness as a lifestyle. It's something that we do every day. We're always thinking about it. And we forget that there are lots and lots of people that don't think that way, that don't necessarily worry about earthquakes or disasters or food storage or any of that sort of thing. It's just not something that they prioritize in their lives. And that's totally fine. We're not judging anyone. We're just saying that there are lots of people that don't. I was one of those people. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I didn't have a tent. I didn't have a sleeping bag. I didn't have food storage. I didn't have none of it. Zero things. And it took a moment. It took hearing that article about the Cascadia earthquake that was about just how disastrous it would be and seeing the math of it to really kind of tweak my brain and allow me to then have preparedness be in the forefront of my mind. And pretty much everything I do now, I am thinking about emergencies and disasters and preparing and keeping my family safe. It's just now ingrained in my everyday life. But it wasn't until I had that moment. I think while that was more of a personal thing for me, a personal moment for me, and specifically people on the West Coast, what has happened in 2020 is I think that almost everyone has had that moment now. Everyone has had the moment of going to the grocery store and seeing the empty shelves. Everyone has had that moment of the economic uncertainty of what might happen, the societal upheaval that's been going on, and what does that mean? Everywhere around the country and everywhere around the world for the most part, that has happened. And so this is a moment where we can hopefully see people begin to understand the importance of preparing and understand the importance of being more self-sufficient, more self-sustaining, more self-reliant than they were in 2019. I think the other thing that is really important about this moment is, as awful as this moment is, and as awful as it has been, people are recognizing the importance of this at a time where utilities are still working and the internet is still working. So there are lots of things that aren't working the way that we would want them to, but life-sustaining services, for the most part, are still happening. So it's kind of almost like a dress rehearsal for some of these bigger, more awful disasters that could come. I say dress rehearsal not to minimize the magnitude of what has happened in 2020. I say dress rehearsal because for what I'm preparing for the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, we will have economic disaster in our area. We will have food shortages like we're having right now. We will have medicine shortages right now. We'll have societal upheaval right now. But we also won't have, for example, running water, electricity, Netflix, internet, cell service. There's a lot of those services that are just kind of running under the surface right now that everyone's kind of taking for granted a little bit, that won't exist in that big calamity that will happen. And granted, it will be the West Coast, it won't be the entire country, but also it will be the entire West Coast. So I'm expecting to see difficult times in getting aid into all of these areas. I'm expecting, kind of like when we saw the 3 hurricanes hit a couple of years ago and FEMA was super stretched. Okay, that was 3 big cities at once and FEMA was really stretched. If the Cascadia subduction zone hits and it takes out the entire West Coast, okay, you've flattened Seattle and Portland and LA and San Francisco and San Diego and all of the cities in between. That's a whole lot more pull on that system, and it likely isn't going to work. So for me, this was one of those times where I could really refocus on all of my preps and all of the plans that I had in place while still being able to go get a drink of water, take a hot shower, watch a show. There were things that continued to happen and work, but it allowed me to really be in that zone. And what I hope is that this has allowed other people to start to get into that zone. One of the issues with preparedness has always been recency bias, where a lot of people just don't think about a bad thing because it hasn't happened lately or because they haven't experienced it. So a lot of times when they interview people after hurricanes and they weren't prepared, they ask, why weren't you prepared? Well, I don't remember the last one, or the last one didn't seem that bad, or I wasn't in the area when the last one happened, and so I didn't think another one would happen. Same thing with earthquakes and wildfires, and people just don't expect it because it hasn't happened. Now it's happened. It's happened, and it's happening. Right now, things are still bad. So this is an opportunity for people to really wedge in their brains how important preparing is, and then to start to work on it, to take 2021 or whatever you did in 2020 and build on it into 2021 to be even more prepared, so that as a society, as a community, everyone has a little bit more. Everyone is a little bit more prepared. We've raised the floor on community preparedness. And that ultimately is going to be better for everyone. If everyone's prepared, then you don't have people who are super prepared and also people who are starving and barely surviving. Everyone is kind of maintaining at a certain level. Hopefully, that is what we get out of 2020, at least from a preparedness perspective. And what I think could be the silver lining of 2020 is that everyone recognizes how important it is to get prepared and starts to do that. So how do we go into 2021? Well, there are a few different things. So one is I have a PDF down below, the inventory assessment PDF. If you're new or if you're kind of trying to figure out where you're at, go ahead and download that. It kind of walks you through the basics of your preparedness journey. Who are you preparing for? How many people? Starts to get your head in the state of what am I doing? What am I trying to prepare for? And where do I sit as far as supplies, as far as organization, those sorts of basics to kind of give you a foundational place to move from. So go ahead and download that, fill it out, see where you're at. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. You can DM us on any of the social medias. We're on Facebook, Instagram. You leave a comment on YouTube or send a message on YouTube, I think. Anywhere you want, send us a message. The next thing is I am working on a couple of tools for 2021 to kind of help everybody. They're going to be launching probably in the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping to get it out the door by the first of the year. It might be the first week of the year. The first is going to be a calendar called Prep Alerts. And this will be a calendar that we're going to kind of go into more, but it's going to try and help people understand when they should be doing things and keeping track of how they're doing. The second thing is I'm working on a packet for food preparedness and food storage and basically inventory and meal planning. This is something that came out of a couple videos ago. I mentioned it in a video and there seemed to be a lot of interest in it. So I'm working on building that out. So that will be coming in 2021. If there are other tools that you think would be helpful, things that you've always wanted to use but haven't been able to find or something like that, that would help you get organized or get prepared or keep track of things, let me know in the comments down below. I'm gonna try and really make 2021 a year where we're putting out some tools, more tools than what we've had. Last year was the inventory assessment. This year I wanna do some more stuff. So would really love your thoughts and insight. I try to take as much as I can from the community and bring that back to everybody. So whatever you've got ideas, leave them in the comments down below. We'll try to pick those up. Also, if you haven't already, I'm trying to kind of mix up the order of the videos a little bit. If you haven't already, or if you're interested in this kind of content, you like this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you'll be alerted when there are new videos, hit the notification bell, and please go ahead and prepare to smash the like button. It really, really helps with the YouTube algorithm, helps us to get the videos out to more people so they can see it and they can get more prepared. So if nothing else, hit the like button. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And that is gonna wrap it up for 2020. Thank you all again for being here, for subscribing, for viewing, for participating. This has been an incredible year for Cascadia Dispatch. We've seen huge growth. We've seen huge reaction from the community, and it's really, really wonderful. And hopefully we're gonna take that momentum and push it into 2021 and do even more. So thank you, all of you. Also, Prepper adjacent sweatshirts, link is down below. Sweatshirt stickers, all that sort of stuff. Thanks again. Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2021.